Go home, go hard, go home. Touchdown like the end zone. When the circle turn to my home, can't get me out of my zone. Go hard, go home, go hard, go home. Yeah, these championship rings on my hands now. In my head I'm top 10, yeah, that's hands down. You a squad, know you're looking man down. Funny how foes turn to friends now. Drive a race car like a Atari now. Call filling up, I need product again. Treat the business like a playground, might slide on you. Do me wrong, might slide on you. Do a backflip, cause I'm mad rich. I'm the definition of what that is. Go hard, go home, go hard, go hard, go home, go hard, go home, go home. Touchdown like the end zone. When the circle turn to my home, can't get me out of my zone. Go hard, go home.
You know what time it is, baby. We know what time it is.
Good evening.
Yes, sir. Less than 24 hours, my man. Less than 24 hours before kickoff. How we feeling? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I mean, obviously, we'll talk about what's going down, what happened last week. We'll get into that. I'm actually I'm not feeling. I feel better this year than I did last year in this game.
Okay. Well, I mean, we had a bit of the unknown, right?
Yeah.
But now we've got some stuff in the tuck. We've seen some things. But first, before we get into that, again, welcome to the Longhorn Fan Battle Podcast. I am Tim Wayne. My man, Dion Gandhi, a.k.a. Harish, is here. We're getting ready to, again, discuss everything Texas-Alabama. Again, kickoff is in less than 24 hours. We also want to recap and do some recapping. But before we get started, always make sure you get the best Longhorn news that college has that we have to offer from fanbattlesports.com. Again, you can catch all of our previous episodes and things there, news articles and such. If we have anything breaking, it'll definitely be there. So make sure that you guys stay tuned into there. Also, make sure that you follow us on Longhorn Fan Battle at Twitter, where my man, you could get, just you may be able to get some stats out of there, or you may just get straight up pure trash talk.
That's what we do best. And we are almost at 100 followers. So,
man,
please follow us on Twitter. We're getting there. We're going pretty rapidly. So I want to thank all the support out there. So we appreciate it. But definitely give us a follow there. Eight followers from 100. So.
Right. And so make sure you guys also feel free to follow us on YouTube as well. Leave comments on YouTube. Facebook is always really active. We appreciate it. Shout out to my man, Trey. His birthday was yesterday. So I want to shout out him. He's always in and he's always super active. So Trey, if you ever see this or if you watch it, happy birthday, my G. And best wishes to you. So now we got all of that out the way. Let's get right into it. Let's talk about it. I mean, it's here. It's staring us in the face. So let's knock it out. Last week was week 1, and TCU, the former runner-up and national champion, happened to host the Colorado Buffs, who will be Big 12 in the Big 12 next year. And safe to say, they look pretty solid. I do have some takes, but looks to be pretty solid. But we have been overwhelmed. I wouldn't say overwhelmed. We have been granted a darling by the name of Deion Sanders. Not for the first time, not for the second time, for the 4th or 5th time within his career, from him being at Florida State to now, where he's coaching, and his 14 years that he was in the NFL. We got to see his son Shador and Shiloh both make and have impacted plays within that game. That game came down to 3 points? It was a 3-point game.
5-42?
Right, something like that. So now we have all these sound clips and all these sound bites. Nebraska versus Colorado. If you're an old head of the Big 12, and even previous to the Big 12, this was a really big matchup back in the day. When they were in the Big 12. So we get to see it tomorrow. It's the first game that's going to be on air. It's going to be the biggest thing until Texas plays Alabama. It is going to be the biggest thing. So I want to ask you, and I just kind of want to get how you feel. Like, how do you feel about the whole Deion situation? TCU, basically laying an egg in the second half and losing to Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, I watched pretty much the entire game from beginning to end, minus a few, probably the second half of the third quarter I missed. They're good. I mean, I think Colorado, what Deion has been able to do in just basically 8 months' time. You're bringing in 60 odd new players, mostly through the transfer portal, right?
Right.
You basically rebuilt the roster through the transfer portal, and you go, albeit I think an overrated TCU team. I think this TCU team. This is the Sonny Dykes TCU team, right? This isn't the Gary Patterson TCU team coached by Sonny Dyke, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens. I think TCU lost some 20 starters or something.
Oh yeah, they lost a bunch of starters on offense. Of course, Max Duggan is gone.
Yep.
But they lost quite a bit of starters on offense and defense. As you know, usually those national championship teams kind of just get picked through, especially when you got graduating, you got people transferring in and they're leaving and things like that. So you get a culmination of all of that. You get to a national championship, you get blown out. However, people are still going to look at you. NFL talent is still going to look at you to see, well, you did something to get here.
Right.
Now, granted, last year TCU had about 9 of these games that came down to 3 points or less, right?
Yep.
And so, they ran into a better team. They got pounced on in the national championship. I do have a hot take. I do like what Deion is doing. But it took a lot for Colorado to beat TCU, basically a bad TCU. It took a lot of effort. And some people are going to be like, well, no, you're going to have to do this. You're going to have to do this. Your best player played 144 snaps. That's equivalent to 4 NFL games. Now, I've played football outside of the high school, college era. And even those games, I've played against professionals. I've played against people that have played in college at the highest level. And they wouldn't last that long. It takes a very special type of player, and I believe Travis Hunter is a special type of player. However, my fear, and I told you this off, outside of this, that I just don't want him to get burnt out.
Yeah,
I
think it's a legitimate concern. I think at some point he's going to have to pick a side.
Right. I think what'll happen is I think Deion will get the rein on it. I think he just kind of wanted to just kind of go all out to see what he can do within his first game.
Yeah.
And also to build confidence within the team. But they're going to have to rein it back on him somehow because, you don't want that kid blowing his hamstring or messing something up or doing something crazy because, again, that's that first game is a lot of adrenaline running through the whole game. You're going to have that adrenaline, right? I think they could do something. I still think they're not going to go undefeated.
No, they're not.
Like I've seen people saying, "Oh, they're going to go undefeated." No, they're not. But I just think it took them a lot to beat a bad TCU team. You had your best player playing over 140 snaps. Now Shedeur looked great.
Yeah.
That dude can throw the rock. You know what I'm saying?
He really can.
He can throw the rock. He looked fantastic.
Yeah, really
out of all of the stuff that's going on, Shedeur looked great. Now, do I know Shedeur looked great previous to that? Yes, because I watched Shedeur play at Jackson State on YouTube. So I know, and he was here in Texas playing high school ball. So we kind of already know what Shedeur does, but the country finally got they got a whiff of what he can do. There's a lot of NFL first round draft picks are saying, or a lot of NFL GMs that are reaching out to these major media moguls are saying, hey, this kid could, if he continues to play at this level, he could be a first round. I think the way he's looking, he probably should. Other than that, I don't really have much to say. We already know how Deion is. He keeps receipts. If you continue to go after him, he's gonna go. So that's just what it is.
Yeah, I think I don't think Colorado. I think Colorado's schedule is too brutal for them to go.
Colorado's schedule is real brutal. And again, and I said it last week, and I still stand on it. I think it shows this after this week 1.
Yeah,
the Pac-12 has the best quarterbacks. Period. Like Bo Nix, DJ up in Oregon State. You got Shedeur at Colorado. You got Caleb at USC. You got a backup that hung 40 on Florida and Utah. Like you got the kid at UCLA. Like
the Pac-12 is pretty tight. And the problem for Colorado is they play all those teams.
They play all of those teams.
And as good as as cool as it was that they beat Colorado or that they beat TCU, that defense isn't built to beat these other teams yet. Yeah. But what it does show that this is clearly going to be probably like a 6 or 7 win team, right, which is about where we had them. in that 6 to 8
Yeah,
range.
and
So
listen.
it's not a knock. They won a game last year.
They can have games fall either way based on how they played against TCU. These games can fall either way. Now TCU, you got to pick your teeth up, dog. You've been popped in your mouth the last 2 times we've seen you. You gotta. Sonny Dykes got to do something to rein that in, because you get popped in the national championship. That's one thing. You get popped in your season opener. That's another thing. Like you gotta figure that out. You got to figure that out.
Fortunately enough for TCU, their schedule is weak enough to where they can figure it out.
Right.
I still think they go like 8-4 though.
And good. Listen, people think 8-4 is bad for a TCU. That is not bad. That is a really, really good year. Like you said, it took a lot for Colorado to beat TCU. They're still going to be formidable. They may find a spark. They might wake up, find a way to get maybe a loss or maybe another loss, be 9-3, 8-4. That's not a bad year, especially off of a national championship year where your team basically gets gutted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're not in Alabama, you're not in Georgia where you just roll blue chippers in right after another. So before we get to Rice versus Texas and we recap that, my thoughts about the Big 12 as a whole. What a train wreck.
Yeah, the conference sucks. And I can't wait
to my God.
I think the best moment was watching that Texas Tech Wyoming game and seeing Texas Tech lose to Wyoming. That was great. That was excellent to watch, by the way.
Wow. Texas State beat Baylor.
That was shocking.
Well, it's not shocking because what kind of quarterback they got now, man. People forget they got a blue chipper at quarterback that transferred in from LSU. He was a backup quarterback at LSU. Really? Yeah, man. He was highly touted. This dude looks like LeBron James throwing a football. He's 6'6". Oh, shit. He's like 250 pounds. Like, if he goes to the league, they're going to try to convert him to a tight end, but he throws rockets. Absolute rockets. And one more thing before we get to the before we move on to Rice versus Texas, Dabo, you look like a fool. You need to get off your butt and you need to literally put some effort into getting some of these kids from the transfer portal, because if you don't get in this transfer portal and get with the program, you're gonna be left behind. That's all I got to say about that. It was clear last week. You don't believe in this. Your homegrown talent in your state alone ain't doing it. You're not Texas. You're not Louisiana. You're not Florida. You're not Georgia. You're not California. You're not Pitt. You're not Ohio. You're not Michigan. You're none of that. None of that can work for you. You cannot grow homegrown talent and just expect to go and run over everybody. That is not going to happen. Florida, Texas, Louisiana, and California alone is like football powerhouses. You think your little state, you think that because you don't want to jump in the transfer portal and you think that you can get these kids from your state to come in to Clemson and you think you're going to run over somebody that chases rabbits for a living, that likes to chase rabbits to gain agility in Florida in the swamp? You're crazy. That's all I'm going to say about that. Let's move on. Rice versus Texas. Tell me how you felt about it.
Yeah, I think I was probably most impressed with the defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about getting a push on both sides of the ball, but I was also, Quinn was actually really good, minus the deep balls, right?
Right.
But if you go back and you look at the deep balls that he missed out on, one of them was probably on him. It was the one overhead to Xavier that Xavier actually caught, right? He just placed him a little too far outside on that one. One was a catch, and then Jordan Whittington ran into Jatavian Sanders.
Yeah, that was wild. That was
a touchdown, right?
Right.
And then the one that he was forced to, and then you had the one to Jordan Whittington down the field where Jordan Whittington runs the wrong route.
Right.
He's expecting a cross or a post route.
Yep.
And then you get, Jordan Whittington running a streak. So miscommunications. I think minus those, outside of those two, I thought Quinn played very well. I do think the offense. I'm worried about the interior offensive line.
Okay.
The guards in the center. But DJ Campbell got hurt. I think he comes back. He'll be fine. I thought Cedric Baxter was about to go off because he had that long run.
Oh, he looked so good. That one run had me promising. Like, it was promising. It was very promising.
And then he gets hurt on the same play.
Yeah. Yeah. Nasty.
And I think that kind of also hurt because I think that's when you're trying to get a run game going, which is something Sark likes to do, and it kind of takes that away. Jaden Blue looked pretty good too.
Yes, he did. He looked phenomenal. Yeah.
And then
that dude can really scoop, man. He's a guy that just gets in and out pretty quickly. Man, it doesn't take him much to get going.
Yeah, I think Sark said he wanted to get Arch in, but he couldn't because he basically ran out of time. So maybe we'll see him against Wyoming.
Okay,
that'll be nice to see him get some sets. I think overall, I don't think it wasn't an A+ performance. I think we all had an expectation, and it didn't meet that expectation. Defensively, this team looks amazing already.
Right.
At every level, right? I didn't look very well. I didn't find a weakness. Even like Michael Bendo, who's a guy that David Bendo, who's a guy that does not look good.
Right.
Normally that dude, he's got some speed on him, man.
Right.
Like that guy can run. And
right.
I was very, very impressed with David Bendo. Defensive line, when you rotate in, I think they rotated in 18 different guys.
They were fresh, and you could tell it carried throughout the entire game.
Yeah,
you could tell that all of those defensive linemen were fresh.
Scheme wise, it was pretty vanilla. Like they didn't do anything crazy. They didn't do anything. They were just getting pressure with 4, which is great. There was no blitzing. You didn't really see any exotic blitzes or anything like that.
Right, and we're not going to.
Yeah, and well, I mean, maybe some of that is saving stuff for Bama next week because I do think you want to try, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. You want to try to confuse Jalen Milroe, but I also think I do legitimately think that some of that is also that defensive line just looked really good.
Right. So what I took away from the game is that you could tell that Sark wanted to impose his will, but he absolutely was not willing to impose his will and show Alabama anything that they could use or anything that they could possibly defend for tomorrow. And you hit it right on the head. The play calling was extremely vanilla. Extremely vanilla to the point to where I was like, when we got to halftime, I was like, "Ooh, I don't know if this is going to work," because, like we stated last week, and we talked about last week, we covered briefly. You're playing against JT Daniels, and JT Daniels, even though he's been to quite a few schools, he's not trash. He started at basically every school that he's been at. He just so happened to be in a situation where they've had either multiple quarterbacks in a room, he got injured, and another quarterback came in and got hot. And so when you have things like that, that makes a real big difference. He's no slouch. He's going to play in the NFL. He may not go first round or third round, but somebody's going to take a chance on him because they've got enough tape to see that he's played well over 40 games in his college career that they can see, and he can make throws. He can do things that a lot of these quarterbacks can't right now, whether it be age or this, just not in their skill set. So JT Daniels is, to play against JT Daniels is one thing, and they played against him 3 times on 3 different teams, and he played against the Rice Owls, and he looked fairly decent. Outside of them playing like Texas, they're gonna hurt a lot of people because he's played really well.
Do they play in a major conference now, right?
I can't remember.
Well, not a major. They play in a G5 now.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yes. That is true. So I kind of expected. I didn't expect Texas to hang 50. I definitely thought that they would be in that 30 to 40 range. So
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I just didn't like that they struggled at the beginning offensively. Without, of course, you had the long run, you had the miscues and things of that nature. But I think just like last year, we're gonna see something completely different this year, or this game. Things are gonna be tight. I think things are gonna be polished. I think the reason why you had Jordan Whittington and you had JT Seniors running into each other is probably because they don't practice that play that much, and you have a situation where you run into them, and it's like the bare basics, right? That's what we saw. Tomorrow, what we see is going to be completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. So, guys, just be ready for that. It's basically they're going to do the same thing against Oklahoma. They're going to dial it back. You're not going to be able to see that game before Oklahoma. They're not going to be playing. They're not going to be throwing out these weird concepts and stuff like that. That's going to get hung up. You're going to go back and you're going to see the basics. So we've seen the basics last week. Expect Sark to come out with a massive playbook, a play card sheet, and he's going to let it on. He's going to let it go. Like literally any and everything that you can expect to see it tomorrow.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that Sark earlier on the week said, Quinn looked good this week. He has looked good, and they're going to do some different things to kind of get the playmakers out there in space a little bit more this week.
Right.
Xavier Wardy looked amazing, by the way.
Yeah, he did. He looked like a first-round draft pick.
Yeah, he. that's
Five catches for
so
119.
this is the thing. If that's a guy, but that's a guy that they it seemed like they were being purposeful around getting him the ball.
Right.
And the way that they did get him the ball is basically what I think we need to do, right? They need to RPOs, little slants, little the one route that AD Mitchell ran, the little slant route, the little RPO slant to get him a touchdown. I was see, I do think Sark does dial up some really. I think he's a great play caller, right? And I think he's dialed up some really cool stuff. I do expect to see a lot of that. Very curious. There's one aspect of this game that I'm very curious about, and I think
let me
we'll
hear
talk
it.
about that here in a second.
Okay. Well, we're on the Texas-Bama. The Longhorns have made the trip. They have landed. They are in Tuscaloosa. ESPN and Pat McAfee have landed in Tuscaloosa as well. It was a pretty big crowd today, as on the Four Letter Network. Pat interviews Coach Saban and has struck a deal with him to where he's going to interview Coach Saban every Thursday for the rest of the season. I thought that was pretty cool.
Huh.
But yeah,
Sure.
It's interesting to see how fans are, like how these major networks are, and how they've culminated what they think is going to happen. I really think that they're going to be in for a really big shock. I think they're going to be in from both sides, and I'll go on the reasons why. Let me start with an Alabama perspective. You've been boat raced by Georgia a couple times, not a lot, but at least 2 of the 6 meetings you've been boat raced. So there's that. Now you got a back-to-back national champion in Georgia. So now people are starting to they're like, hey, what's going on? Hey, what's going on? So now you got you go and you get another number 1 draft class or recruiting class, where you just been landing all types of kids. So now before the season starts, you have somewhat of a quarterback issue. And I'll get to that quarterback here in a second here. So you run into a quarterback situation, you pick your starter, you play against Middle Tennessee. He doesn't really throw a lot. He's more of a runner. So now people are looking at Alabama. They're like, oh, they're going back to their old ways. They're going to run the ball. They're going to play great defense, blah, blah, blah. And so you got that. So now people are doubting Alabama. Not the big guys, not Vegas, but like the other guys. There's a couple other guys sprinkled in there. We don't need to focus on them. Then you got Texas. Everybody's like, oh, where are y'all back? Or are you this? Again, I hate that phrase. I really do. And I really hate whoever what's my man's name that created that state that when we played against Notre Dame and we beat Notre Dame. Anyway, you got Texas, you got all these great weapons, you got all these great recruits, and you don't have a statement game other than Georgia. And that was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 4 years ago. That coach is not here. Those players are gone. Those players have all graduated. They're gone. They're not here. So now you have to literally, as Coach Sark, your statement game, where is it? This is the game. We thought it was last year. It was, I would say that was a statement game. They did lose, but it showed more promise. Like, this is what we have to offer. This is what Sark has to offer. A fighting team that can literally go toe-to-toe with anybody every Saturday. You bring yours and we'll bring ours. But there hasn't been a statement win. It just hasn't been a statement win. The expectations to beat Baylor are always going to be there. The expectations to beat TCU, Tech, Oklahoma State are always going to be there. Kansas, Iowa State, those are always going to be there. But you don't have a statement game. And so it's like these two issues are going to come collide tomorrow. And to me, you're going to have a pissed off Nick Saban because people are doubting him. You got Sark and Quinn Ewers that need statement games. They look great doing everything else except for winning the games that they're supposed to win. And that's what it's all boiled down to. Oh, don't forget, you got a guy that's got arguably one of the best NFL quarterbacks, and his uncle has one of the best NFL playoff records in his career sitting right behind you. And you also got another guy that's built like a Greek god with locks and can run over anybody and can throw like a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. So you got all of that, and it's all going to be in one area tomorrow. It's all going to come to a head. And I just pray that we're on the winning end. I've got confidence that we will be on the winning end. However, if we lose and we lose terribly, I don't know. I don't know. How do you coach your kids through these big moments? How do you continue to coach them through these moments? I would question that. It would definitely come into play. So what are you feeling? Like, what are your thoughts? Like, I know you had some time to think about it,
Yeah.
Coming back. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think there's, I don't even care about Arch and all that crap. That's all national media bull crap that I don't care about. I would say this is a statement game, I guess, because there is an opportunity here to have something there that basically is like, hey, this is the win that you guys have been looking for, and I think this is a great opportunity to do it because, quote unquote, Bama is quote unquote down, right?
Right.
I just want to see the one thing I have yet to see this Texas team do under Stark is play full four quarters.
Ooh, yes, sir. Yeah,
I want to see them now. If they played a complete 4 quarters and they put it all out on the field and they still lose that game tomorrow, I'll be okay.
I'll be okay. I will be okay.
Right. But if the offense, Here's the thing: Sark is going to have an opening script. I expect this team to be up by 10 or 14 points to start this game before halftime. I expect that to happen. You look at last year.
He's one of the best.
How many we were up at double digits in every game, including Alabama.
Right.
Like I think we were up 17-7 last year.
Yeah, something like that.
No, 14-3. Something weird. Like I can't remember what it was. Right.
Right.
And then we kind of laid a goose egg. Right. I would not be upset if we lost this game like 27-26 or 27-24, but we played a solid 4 quarters.
Right.
Right. And it really truly did come down to we just ran out of time. Right.
Yep.
So I'm more thinking about the consistency and if we're talking about growth in year 3, that to me looks like, can this team put together a solid 4 quarter game? Last week they didn't do that either.
Right.
So they still
very
have
inconsistent in the first half.
They still have yet to do it. So I think that's probably the one thing I'm looking forward to, is seeing if they can put together a solid 4 quarters.
Okay. So with that being said, and you're saying, hey, I would like to see a full 4 quarters. I definitely would agree with you on that. I would like for you to kind of point out one thing from Alabama and maybe one thing from Texas that's going to stand out for you. For me, I would say the one thing that's going to stand out, and this is very cliche, but Jalen Carter. I'm sorry, not Jalen Carter. What's his name? Jalen Milroe. Sorry for butchering his name. Okay. Let's give a quick backstory. He did commit to the University of Texas a couple years ago. He did decommit. That quarterback room was real heavy. I understand where it came from. He is from the state of Texas. He is a runner. And he can scoot with the best of them. He's from Katy. And Katy when he was quarterback at Katy, they were curb stomping people. So I'm familiar with him from a high school perspective. He is really, really fast. However, he's not the greatest thrower. Some people compare him to Jalen Hurts, a faster Jalen Hurts, but he can't throw, because Jalen Hurts is actually a very accurate thrower.
Yes, he is.
And to be a dual threat quarterback. A lot of people don't realize that, because he doesn't necessarily have to run the ball, because he can throw it on a dime if he needs to. Jalen Carter or Jalen Milroe is not the same guy. He can throw. We know he can throw, but he can scoot. And that's where my thing is. That's one thing that I'm concerned about, is because, and I'm pretty sure they have done all of the research that they possibly can on this kid. But that kind of makes me a little nervous. Here's why. That's what Bryce Young did last year. He could get the ball off, but he wasn't able to get out there like he needed to. And the plays that he needed to make at the end of the game, he made with his legs. That first down on that 2nd and 17 that they had, and he ran 18 yards in the 4th quarter. That is what gets me. I'm really wanting to see what the defense does from a schematic perspective. Like, do y'all sit back in the zone and make him beat you with the arm, and you keep containing, you try to keep this guy boxed in so he can't run? Or do you man up, lock down lock down the receivers, and just say, hey, if you're gonna beat us, you're gonna beat us with your legs, and we're gonna tap you every time that you take off. How are you gonna, or are you gonna do a mixture too? I'm pretty sure there's gonna be a mixture too, but like, that's one thing that stands out to me for Alabama side, that I feel like they could win with that. It just, they got to figure out how they're gonna attack that. On the offense, on Texas side, dog, you gotta run that rock, baby. You gotta run that rock, dog. You gotta get out there. You gotta run that rock. You gotta establish some type of offense. You cannot be one dimensional. You gotta be able to run a rock, and you gotta be able to make the proper passes, get the proper tempo and things of that nature. You got to be able to get that. And if you say one dimensional and you put it in Quinn's hands, I don't think that's gonna work in our best nature. You got to have a balance of both. So, what are two things that stand out to you, or maybe even two players that stand out to you tomorrow that are going to be important within that game?
Yeah, I really think I would agree with running the ball. Even last year, I took a look. I think Bijan Robinson only had like 56 rushing yards last year in this game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Sark used him very well. I thought Quinn was very good in this game, if you remember, right?
Yeah,
Quinn
he looked like a number one prospect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I expect that to happen again. I do think I expect to bounce back.
Right.
The thing that concerns me the most is the interior offensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Bama is going to try to exploit that a little bit.
Okay.
They were struggling with just like simple stunts against Rice last week. But on the other side, I think Bama's offensive line struggled a lot too.
Against Middle Tennessee.
Yeah, against Middle. They were actually not doing very well in the offensive line. And I think I'm trying to find it. I don't remember. I think Jalen Milroe had okay, maybe he didn't. I thought he had some turnovers last week, but I guess he didn't. Yeah, I think you have to mix things up defensively. I don't think you do just one thing. A lot of zone blitzing I think would be interesting, playing some mans instead of a zone. I think you have to give him some different looks.
Right.
And I think PK will, because he's an okay thrower of the ball. I don't think he's excellent.
Right.
And I think if they can't run the ball, then I think Alabama is going to struggle. It's going to be a long day for them. Okay. I also think if Texas can't run the ball, it's going to be a long day for them too.
Mm-hmm.
People are probably expecting this to be a high-scoring game. I'm definitely not expecting this to be a high-scoring game.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, I jokingly put on Twitter the other day that Texas would win 56-29. I was just trying to get our follower count up. I think this is realistically like a 27-24 type game. I do think Texas wins.
Ooh.
But I think both of these defenses are really, really good. And I think whoever the one we talked about, a couple weeks ago when we talked about playmakers,
right?
Whoever can make that one play defensively, that game-changing playmaking play, whether it's a turnover, forced fumble, a recovery, something along that nature, will win this football game.
Man, wouldn't this be a beautiful week for Anthony Hill Jr. to just show up and show out? What?
No, I wouldn't. I see Jalen Ford making another one of his big plays.
Listen, can we talk, bro? But that kid needs to be.
It was amazing.
Butkus linebacker, Butkus winner, award finalist. Dude, the stuff that he does, who he reminds me of? He reminds me of a Tyrann Mathieu. He's literally everywhere. He's in on every play. It's like
he reminds me of Shaq Leonard a lot.
Okay.
Before he got hurt. I mean, when he was Darius Leonard, right? Right. He was that playmaking linebacker. Darius Leonard 2 years ago had like 6 forced fumbles, like 7 interceptions. Like, nobody talks about how good Darius Leonard actually is.
Right.
I see a lot of Darius Leonard and Jalen Ford.
All right. Well, like I said, man, that guy, Jalen Ford, man, that guy is literally everywhere on every single play. It's it's dope to watch him make the play, because when he makes the play, it's like the entire team just gets this jolt of energy. I don't know what it is. It could like if he gets an interception or force a fumble, like just watch that team erupt around. It's crazy. It's like they almost expect him to be like, oh man, like when is he gonna pull one up? Because I was kind of waiting for him a little bit. I'm just like, when is he gonna show up? When he was playing a very, very good game. He had like 3 or 4 tackles for losses. Like I said, he was basically in on almost every play, past the line of scrimmage. So he had his stamp on the game.
Yep.
So yeah, I could definitely see Jalen Ford coming out and having a great party as well. Now, you mentioned earlier that you don't see this Texas game being a high scoring game, in which you gave your prediction. And you had 24-27?
I had 27-24 Texas, yeah.
Okay. So for me, I expect the first half of this game to be high scoring. When I expect it to be high scoring, I mean like I expect Texas Alabama at halftime to be 21-17, 21-14-17.
I don't expect that at all.
I here's why. You're going to see a bunch of stuff that you're not used to seeing. Alabama's gonna be on their heels, vice versa. And then that second half, that's when the real game is performed because we know Bama is really, really good at adjusting during halftime. Now, there's those occasions where that doesn't necessarily happen all the time, but for the most part, Saban will throw a wrinkle in there. He might even switch a quarterback out. We've seen him do it in the national championship game. He'll switch the quarterback out. Maybe run a completely different set. I don't know. Put a tight end at running back. I don't know. We know that he's done it because we've seen it in the past. Again, from the Texas perspective, I need you, just like you mentioned, to be consistent for a whole game. Yeah. So, with that being said, I do have Texas winning the game by a pinch. I mean a pinch. I'm saying Texas is winning this game 30-28.
Yeah, that's pretty fair.
30-28. Originally, I was going to go up higher. I was going to think maybe like 35, 38, something around that area. But then, again, when I thought about the adjustments, I did and the way I think that the game is going to go, I do see the game getting tighter. I do see the game getting tighter as we get closer and closer to that second half and that fourth quarter. So I definitely didn't want to keep it up high scoring. I just think that we would see more action in the first half than the second half. So, again, I got Texas beating Alabama in Tuscaloosa, but very narrow. This is going to be a narrow win. I think at the end, that fourth quarter is going to really hunker down, and it's going to be about who's going to make the plays, who's going to be that playmaker. Did you have any concerns coaching wise? Now, I know
yes, I do. I'm concerned about Sark's ability to adjust. He still can't do it. He still has not shown that he can adjust. Okay. And part of the reason why I think it's 27-24, I think Texas, like I said, wins, probably takes like a 10 to 13 point lead early on.
Right.
It kind of stumbled to the finish line, but it ends up being enough. I also don't think Sark adjusts well enough. If Sark adjusts well offensively and shows us he's the elite play caller we think he is and can be,
right?
Texas can boat race Bama, honestly.
Yeah.
But Bama can boat race Texas. Like I don't think either of those scenarios are out of line. Right. I likelier see the Texas boat races Bama. if Sark calls a great game. Again, it goes back to if Texas plays 4 quarters of solid football,
right,
they could win this game by 3 or 4 touchdowns.
right.
And I don't, 56-29 would not be out of the question, like type of score.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, you're saying that you don't believe that Sark can adjust. Are you also incorporating that based off of what you saw last week?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's fair. Again, I think, and I told you again prior to that, it's going to be a bare bones game. I think Sark was able to adjust properly. The second half, were there some miscues? Absolutely. But to me, those were against Rice. That's where you want to make those mistakes. You don't want to make those same mistakes against Bama, right? Because again, they've got enough talent to where they can get out there, they can jump on you, and next thing you know, you're down 14 points in the fourth quarter, and you've got 2 turnovers that's happened on your side of the ball, on your side of the field. So I get what you're saying. You're looking at based off of what you saw. Again, I'm gonna exercise a little bit of grace on that end because again, he didn't open up the playbook. If he opened up that playbook and it was still like that, then I would be concerned. But until then, with that being said, I'm gonna give him a little bit of grace. Now, one thing that like matchup wise, I'm really trying to see. I think a really interesting matchup that a lot of people are going to be paying attention to is going to be those UT receivers versus Saban's defensive backs. We all know that Saban is he's produced some really good defensive backs. He's got Kool-Aid over there. We know how he is. We know how he gets down. He's going to get his. But we're going to need to see what those other guys are like. I do see Texas, even though I do think that they need to focus on running the ball. I can see a package within the first quarter and the first half where Texas gets out and spreads everybody out and just go get the ball off. You need slants, pick plays, RPO. I mean not RPO, screens, things of that nature. I could definitely see that happening. Because they're going to need a push, right? You're going to need to test these DBs, and so I could see like a NASCAR package where you've got 5 wide receivers out there, and you just go let them go and see what they can do. So that's one thing that I'm interested in seeing. Also, I really think with the amount of weapons that Texas has, from the tight end perspective, even to the backup tight end, to the 5th string wide receiver, Texas has all of its talent up and down there. And I'm not putting anything against any Alabama players because we know what they can do. We know how they get down. They reload with blue chippers every year. But it's just like that is a overwhelmingly a lot of talent in one group in particular. I haven't seen anything like that since Bama, when they had Jalen Waddle, when they had what's my man's up in Philly,
Devontae Smith,
right? When they had Henry Ruggs, like you just couldn't. That was a lot, that was a lot of speed. And if you think about that wide receiver group, who coached that wide receiver group?
Sark. Yeah.
So
I think it's interesting, and Kelvin kind of pointed this out. The over under for this game is 53.5.
I don't think that's happening.
53. No, I think it's gonna be low scoring.
I just don't. Over under
24 puts it at 53.
I'm taking the under. I'm taking the under, Kelvin. The reason why I'm taking the over under is because I do think it's gonna be at one point in time it's gonna be high scoring, but I only believe it's gonna be high scoring for a half.
Yeah, but your final score puts it at over.
What did I put it at?
30-28. like I said, I have them winning 24.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
That's
Okay.
right.
So
That's
take it over.
right at 53 or 54, I think. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think this is going to be a high scoring game at all. And if it is, then I'd be very shocked. That means they're blown assignments, defensive touchdowns could happen, right? I think
I'm
that's
thinking
something
more
that
defensive touchdowns. I'm hoping there's more defensive touchdowns.
it'd be cool. It'd be cool to see. It'd be cool to see like Jalen Ford pick 6-1 or pick.
Oh my God, I would
I'd
love
love to
it.
see a defensive lineman pick one up and take it into the end zone, but
Yeah,
I
Sweat. Where
unless
you at,
there's
baby?
something like
Big Sweat is hard though.
unless something like that happens,
Right.
I don't see this score being very high. I also don't as I think Sark plans it right. I think you could take advantage of the secondary because outside of Coley McKinstry, they've got talent, but they don't have a lot of experience.
Right. Let me ask you this, and then we could close out. What is a guaranteed win for Texas? What do you need to see happen that you feel like Texas will be a guaranteed win?
Defense and running the ball.
Okay. So I for me, and then we can look at a couple more comments if need be. Listen, for me, it's going to be the deep ball. In order for you got to be able to stretch his defense a couple of times. I'm not saying that he needs to do it, every single every possession, but there needs to be a good 4 or 5 deep balls, and I'm talking over 20 yards, whether it be to Jatavian Sanders, whether it be to Isaiah Nayar, either one of those guys. I just need to see some deep balls. I don't think I'm asking for a lot. Yeah. But in order to keep that defense honest, because if you can't get those deep balls going, those defensive backs are gonna start feeling themselves. Those young defensive backs are gonna start feeling themselves. Yeah. And so they're gonna, they might switch it up, they might press a little bit more, they may not give you as much cushion, they may just continue to just man up and try to lock you up because they're not getting that deep ball off. Now that also puts a lot of pressure on the offensive line. It also puts a lot of pressure on Quinn. Quinn, you got to put the ball in the pocket, dog. Like that has to happen. There's to me, in order for Quinn to really, really, really put this game away, he's got to play a perfect game.
I don't think he does. Like I said, I don't think he needs to play perfect. Now, if we're talking about the Alabama team last year, no, absolutely he needs to play a perfect game. And he basically did, and they obviously
until they got hurt.
But I don't think he needs to. This Bama team is not that good. They are not on the upper echelon of like Bama teams in the past. It's a very talented but much younger Bama team.
Right.
I mean, honestly, I'd see this Bama team like the Texas team last year.
Right.
Very solid quarterback who's very talented, has the ability to do a lot of different things.
Right.
A plethora of running backs who are really, really good. I don't know any of their wide receivers. Not saying that they're not good, but because they always have. But we just haven't seen enough of this wide receiving core.
We haven't seen enough of this group yet.
Honestly, if Quinn, unless Quinn completely like bags it tomorrow, if he has like a similar performance to what he did last week, and it's like 250, I think the over under for passing yards for Quinn is like 262. I'm taking the over. And if he does, like, let's just say he has 275 and 3 touchdowns and no interceptions and no turnovers, I think Texas wins the game.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would.
So agree. I don't. But if let's just say he even has like 250 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick, I still think they can win this.
I think you can get it done with that. What you can't have is 3 touchdowns. What you can't have is 300 yards, because we've seen him do it. 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks. We cannot see that. That cannot happen.
That's when you hope the defense comes up with a playmaker type play, right?
Right.
And they're good for one of them a game. Jalen Ford by himself is good for one of them a game.
Right.
So, I'm not. Again, if Quinn like just completely bags it and he's horrible tomorrow, then I'd be a little bit concerned. But I just don't see it. I just don't see it.
Okay. All right. Well, guys, like I said before at the beginning of the show, make sure that you follow us at fanbattlesports.com. Again, if you need to find any of our previous podcasts, you're more than welcome to go and join them there. Um, Also, make sure you follow us on Longhorn Fan Battle on Twitter or X, if that's what you want to call it. Again, we're there. If you want to talk trash, you want to give us some predictions, feel free to let us know. We'll definitely get back to you. We're pretty much on Twitter all the time. That's our preferred uh, social media platform. You can always get at me at Tim Wayne at the bottom of your screen. You can also get at Harish at the Uncle Gandhi. Do you have anything, any parting ways or any notes, jewels, or gems you want to let us have before we get out of here?
I just want to see a 60-minute game.
60-minute game, right?
Or sorry, it would be 60-minute game.
60-minute game.
That's all.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I definitely understand where you're coming from. We would like to see a consistent game. I think if you build a consistent game, 2 halves, playing, where you can able to keep that energy from the first half all the way through the end of the game, I think you got a real problem in a national champion, a national champion threat. Twitter versus X equals Twix.
That was funny. Sorry.
That was pretty funny. But yeah, just the consistency. I think that's both what we've been wanting to see from Sark since he got to the University of Texas. And so we look forward to it. Tomorrow, a big slate of games. Again, we're more focused on the Longhorn. So you could always go and catch your local cable provider or not to catch up with those games. I'm Tim Wayne. That's my man Harish. We're out of here. We'll see you next time. Till Gabriel.
Welcome.
Go home. Touchdown like the end zone. When the circle turn to my home, can't get me out of my zone. Go hard.